Hello, Father.
Crossfire Legion, the game that had immense potential, fell flat on its face. Welcome back everyone, we are deep diving into Crossfire Legion before asking the question, can this game make a comeback? Now this game is also in the Crossfire universe, but I don't see that having any effect on it other than the faction names of Global Risk and Blacklist, which are basically the two sides of the popular FPS title. But as for this RTS, let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of Crossfire Legion. And the first point is the story. Despite the game's apparent failure, Crossfire Legion has, well, a pretty decent story. There's a sense of something higher at stake in every mission, efficiently timed cinematic cutscenes, and frequent radio comms and chatters in-game to help you feel like you're part of a greater narrative than, just the mission you're playing. Which is great, that's what an RTS story is supposed to be. It also helps that the story is divided into 4 acts, which has a cinematic vibe to it. And the beginning of Act 1 kind of fooled me. See, when we play an RTS like this, it's usually the protagonist faction that starts off the campaign, or what we consider a protagonist faction, like Terrence in Starcraft 2, or GDI in Command & Conquer, Tiberium Wars, or Vinci in Rise of Legends. So similarly, I thought the Global Risk faction will have the first act, but it turns out it was Blacklist, the rebel faction. It was nothing crazy, but in a clever way they kind of broke the unspoken norm, and I liked it. The cinematic cutscenes were my favorite parts of the campaign. You can just sit back, relax, and enjoy a couple of minutes of cutscenes and then get back into the game with a renewed curiosity of what happens next. Now for the weak aspects of the story, there is no explanation of why Global Risk and Blacklist are rival factions. I mean, the names are directly taken from the two opposing sides of the popular FPS title Crossfire. In that kind of game, they don't have any lore because it's not necessary, but that doesn't translate into an RTS setting, so a little bit of exposition would have been nice. The best example would be Command & Conquer Tiberium Wars, where in the beginning they gave a debrief of why GDI and Nod were enemies. So for this game, let's say a text prompt explaining some reasons behind the rivalry between Global Risk and Blacklist, and because they're so occupied with each other, a third power grew secretly under their radars, teasing the New Horizon faction. It would have been super cool. Oh well, a missed opportunity. The next point is not the story itself, is the gameplay of the last mission. In the final act, we get to play Global Risk and Blacklist missions with base building gameplay for each, but no base building for New Horizon faction, who led the final mission.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that didn't sit right with me, especially since they got the coolest looking units. There are some minor details that did break the fun a little bit. For example, in Act 3 Mission 10, the jumping felt kind of bugged. Even though I selected all the units and used the abilities, they won't jump together and it became slightly tedious to figure it out. There are also other instances like this. They're not game breaking, but gets annoying for sure. Our next point is faction design. Well, it's pretty straightforward. They're mostly futuristic military units, your standard roster of infantry, vehicles, and aircraft, and you got 3 variants of each with their own abilities, letting you get creative with the squad building. Now, don't be alarmed. Having abilities doesn't necessarily mean you have to micromanage everything, at least not for single player. You still can just build whatever army you want and have fun. A lot of the abilities are passive anyway. Speaking of the factions, this next point is the card system, and here things get a little tricky. You have a collection of unit cards from which you can recruit and switch out units in your existing roster. It's a great way to try and test different units. Have fun with them while finding out your favorite units or loadout. In my opinion, this could have been the game changer. But before explaining it, let's trace back to the early days. So there were some confusions regarding the implementation of microtransactions and in-game soft currency. Naturally, it drove players away. Not only that, it also put a negative impression of the soft currency that was supposed to be tied to a progression system to unlock or buy new units. In response to the player feedback, they completely removed the microtransactions, which is really commendable. But what they also did was making all the unit cards unlocked from the get-go, and that, in my opinion, subconsciously killed the game. Now you might wonder, what's wrong with making everything unlocked? Well, fundamentally nothing. You pick up the game and play all the units just like any other RTS, and that's the thing, just like any other RTS. This game could have had a unique progression system simply by playing the campaign. No microtransaction, no currency, just the gameplay. The more missions you complete, the more units you unlock. If they implemented something like that, imagine the fun and incentive of playing the story mode, unlocking new units and try them out in skirmish, co-op or PvP games. This kind of unique mechanism could have gained more players, creating a community based on who's trying out what kind of unit composition, content creators sharing their own version of the optimum loadouts for multiplayer, and eventually propelling the game to an effective esport platform. But now that everything's unlocked, there is no incentive to get invested. Combined with a myriad of technical issues, yeah, it was heading towards a failure. That brings us to the final point: gameplay. Again, nothing groundbreaking, similar to Starcraft 2, build your base, manage resources, build an army and go to town. But there are random lags and stutters, which may not ruin the entire experience, still pretty damn annoying. We should have at least another update patching those issues, at least making the skirmish games smooth for the existing players. But there is a glaring issue about which a lot of players shared their complaint, and I agree, there is no in-game saving option. That is just wrong. It's a real-time strategy. How can there be no manual saving? If anything, this is a core convenience of how we play single-player RTS. So now if you need to close the game, you have to start all over. It's understandably frustrating. So now, my friends, we ask the question: can Crossfire Legion make a comeback? I hate to say this, but I don't think so. They might gain back some players if they fix the lags and stutters, but that's about it. I don't see it reclaiming its original vision, which is a shame, because after playing this game, I can tell that they did have a vision.
Well, if you're anything like me and who likes to follow story and play the campaign, we've got that for you. And if you're a super competitive player and you want to be the best, well, we've got that for you as well.
However, if someone picks it up and makes a sequel addressing all the problems, refine the gameplay and make a compelling story, Crossfire Legion might be able to make a grand return, especially considering in the last mission we saw that even though the good guys won, there is an ominous future waiting. And I think with the proper writing, the sequel can be a narrative masterpiece. But for now, considering everything including the technical issues, I'll give Crossfire Legion a 5 out of 10. So that was my assessment. What do you guys think of Crossfire Legion? Let me know in the comments section, and as always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys on the next video.